Hidden in a remote, almost forgotten valley, Ravenshollow was a village time itself seemed to have forsaken. The villagers said the land around it was cursed, that anyone who stayed too long felt a weight pressing upon them, a darkness that settled in the bones. It was a village shrouded in perpetual twilight, even at midday when the sun shone dimly through thick, twisted trees that stood guard around the perimeter like a battalion of ancient, spectral soldiers. The village itself was small, its cottages huddling close together, their ivy-covered walls and sagging rooftops giving the impression they might collapse in on themselves at any moment. The cobblestone streets were narrow, winding through rows of homes that had stood for centuries, watching generations come and go. Ravenshollow's residents clung to old ways, bound by traditions passed down from ancestors who had also known the curse of the lullaby. But as the sun sank below the horizon, a heavy, unnatural silence fell over the village. It was as if the earth itself held its breath, waiting for something ominous to unfold. The townsfolk would retreat into their homes, closing shutters and bolting doors, whispering last prayers as they double-checked locks and rituals. They knew that when the clock struck midnight, there was no safety, no sanctuary, only the haunting call of the lullaby. The lullaby. It was no ordinary song, no mere sound drifting through the air. It was a melody steeped in sorrow and mystery, a tune that clung to the mind like cobwebs, refusing to let go. It started softly, so faint that only the most sensitive of ears could detect it at first. Then, note by note, it grew louder, weaving its way through the village with a spectral grace that defied explanation. Some described it as beautiful, a song of love and longing, but most spoke of the sadness it evoked. A sadness so profound, it threatened to consume anyone who heard it. Generations ago, Ravenshollow had been a vibrant community, bustling with life. But then, one winter's night, the first disappearance occurred. A young mother had vanished from her bed, leaving behind a wailing infant and a grieving husband. The only clue was a faint echo of the lullaby, lingering in the still air long after dawn had broken. The villagers were puzzled, disturbed, but they carried on, dismissing the incident as a tragic accident, until it happened again and again. Each time, the circumstances were the same: an empty bed, no signs of struggle, and the haunting melody fading into silence. Fear crept into Ravenshollow like a slow, creeping poison, infecting every corner of the village until it became a place where hope went to die. Parents clutched their children close at night. Elders sat by their windows, staring into the darkness, waiting for the next person to vanish. Over time, the village began to unravel. People moved away, but most stayed, trapped by something beyond their control, bound to the land by ties stronger than fear. Legends sprang up to explain the lullaby. Tales of a woman scorned and wronged, a mother whose child was taken from her by the village itself, a spirit denied peace. The story went that she had sung to her child every night, a lullaby of comfort, of promises that they would always be together. But when she was accused of witchcraft and cast out, her song turned bitter and vengeful. With her last breath, she cursed Ravenshollow, swearing that her lullaby would forever echo through the village, claiming one soul at a time until justice was served. The villagers came to believe the lullaby was a siren call, a beckoning that no one could resist. It was said that anyone who heard the song from beginning to end would vanish, drawn into the darkness by forces unknown. Over the years, the people of Ravenshollow adapted, inventing rituals to protect themselves from the melody's lure. Some families left candles burning in their windows, believing the light would ward off the spirit. Others placed bowls of salt by their doors, an ancient symbol of protection against malevolent forces. But no matter what they did, the lullaby continued to claim victims, and the disappearances never stopped. In the dead of night, when the village lay silent and still, one could almost feel the presence of those who had vanished. The air was thick with sorrow, a heavy, oppressive feeling that seeped into the skin and settled in the bones. Ravenshollow had become a village of shadows, a place where laughter and joy were rare, where every face bore the marks of grief and fear. As years turned to decades, the villagers grew accustomed to the curse, though the fear never lessened. Children were raised on cautionary tales, warned never to listen too closely to the lullaby, never to look out the window when they heard it. Midnight became a time of dread, a sacred, unspoken ritual where every soul in Ravenshollow huddled in their homes, waiting for the lullaby to begin and hoping that, this time, they wouldn't be the one taken. Ravenshollow had no festivals, no celebrations. Weddings were held at noon under the harsh light of day, and burials took place in silence, without music or songs. Life in Ravenshollow was measured not by the seasons or the years, but by the toll of the lullaby, by the empty places at tables, and the fading memories of those who had vanished. This was the Ravenshollow Sarah had come to inherit, a place shackled by fear, bound to a melody that echoed through the ages. She was a stranger here, yet somehow she could feel the weight of the curse pressing down on her, as if the village itself were testing her resolve, waiting to see if she, too, would succumb to the lullaby's call.